Let's start with the number that's driving both fanatic enthusiasm and brutal criticism, 314 or 159 per Picoin. This isn't random, it's psychological warfare disguised as mathematics. The PI network community anchored their global consensus value to the mathematical constant P, creating what I call symbolic legitimacy. They're not saying pi is worth 314 to 159 because of market cap calculations or revenue multiples. They're saying it's worth this amount because mathematics is eternal, universal, and transcendent. This is community engineering at its most sophisticated level. By connecting their valuation to P, Pi Network transforms criticism of their price target into criticism of mathematics itself. Brilliant or manipulative? Let's dig deeper. Here's what separates this from every other crypto project making bold price predictions. Pi Network isn't asking markets to determine their value. They're declaring that their 60 million users will determine value through collective agreement and real-world usage. The global consensus value model represents a fundamental challenge to traditional price discovery. Instead of supply and demand on centralized exchanges determining worth, Pi Network claims that community consensus and utility adoption will establish true value. But here's the psychological element that most analysts are missing. This declaration creates what behavioral economists call anchoring bias on a massive scale. When 60 million people repeatedly see $159 associated with Picoin, that number becomes their baseline expectation, regardless of current market realities. Warriors, if this psychological warfare analysis is already shifting your perspective on community-driven valuation, prove it by absolutely destroying that like button right now. This intelligence takes serious research, and your engagement helps me continue delivering battlefield analysis that separates strategic thinkers from the confused masses. Don't be a passive consumer. Become an active warrior in the algorithm battle. Now let's examine the second layer of this strategy that traditional finance completely underestimates. Community as infrastructure. Pi Network cultivated 60 million users before launching their main net. Think about that mathematical reality for a moment. Bitcoin has maybe 5 million active users after 14 years. Ethereum has fewer than 10 million regular users. Pi Network claims 12 times Ethereum's user base before establishing market price. But here's where it gets psychologically devastating for critics. These users aren't passive speculators checking prices on CoinMarketCap. They're participants in an economic experiment that rewards engagement, verification, and ecosystem building. In regions across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, pioneers are already transacting with Picoin for real goods and services. This isn't theoretical adoption. This is practical utility creation happening parallel to market speculation. The GCV strategy capitalizes on this foundation by giving users a shared vision that transcends daily price fluctuations. When someone in Nigeria accepts Picoin for food, or someone in Philippines uses Pi for education services, they're not thinking about whether it's worth 65 cents today. They're thinking about its utility and future potential. This creates what I call utility anchoring, value perception based on practical use rather than exchange speculation. It's community psychology deployed as economic infrastructure. But here's the element that could make or break this entire experiment. Sustainable ecosystem development. For the GCV to maintain credibility, Pi Network must prove that 60 million users can translate into genuine economic activity that justifies ambitious valuations. This brings us to the critical battlefield where vision meets reality, ecosystem development, and practical utility. Pi Network's GCV declaration is meaningless without infrastructure to support it. You can't claim $159 per token value without applications, merchants, and real-world integration that validates such pricing. Here's what Pi Network has deployed so far. PI domains for identity management, integration with on-ramp money for payment processing, smart contract functionality, and early-stage decentralized applications. These are foundational elements, but they're not yet ecosystem maturity. The brutal truth is that current Pi Network ecosystem activity doesn't justify even their current price around 65 cents, let alone a GCV of 314.159. The gap between vision and execution remains massive. But here's why I'm not dismissing this strategy entirely. Pi Network is playing a different game than traditional crypto projects. They're building community consensus first, then developing technology to support that consensus. It's reverse engineering cryptocurrency adoption. Most crypto projects build technology and hope communities adopt it. Pi Network built community and now challenges technology to catch up with expectations. This approach could either accelerate adoption through social pressure or create catastrophic disappointment when reality diverges from promises. The next 12 months will determine whether Pi Network's ecosystem development can bridge the gap between community enthusiasm and practical utility. Their success or failure will establish whether community consensus can override market mechanics in cryptocurrency valuation. Warriors, if this ecosystem analysis is crystallizing your understanding of Pi Network's ambitious strategy, smash that subscribe button and notification bell immediately. I consistently deliver institutional-level analysis on projects that mainstream media completely misunderstands, and my warriors always get strategic intelligence before the masses recognize what's happening. Now let's examine this GCV strategy through institutional eyes, because traditional finance views Pi Network with everything from curiosity to complete skepticism. From an institutional perspective, Pi Network's approach violates fundamental valuation principles. You don't declare value. Markets discover value through price mechanisms, liquidity provision, and competitive dynamics. Pi Network's community consensus model appears to ignore these realities entirely. But here's what institutions are missing. Pi Network isn't competing with traditional cryptocurrencies for institutional adoption. They're creating an alternative economic system designed to operate parallel to traditional finance. The 60 million user base represents potential economic sovereignty that doesn't require institutional validation. If even 10% of Pi users engage in regular economic activity using Picoin, that's 6 million people operating in a Pi-native economy. This parallel economy approach could either establish Pi Network as a legitimate alternative financial system, or expose the limitations of community-driven value creation when confronted with market realities. The critical question isn't whether Pi reaches 314,159 per token, it's whether they can build sustainable economic activity that supports whatever valuation their community maintains. That's a fundamentally different success metric than traditional cryptocurrency projects. Warriors, Pi Network's GCV declaration represents either visionary community engineering or dangerous delusion, and the answer will reshape how we understand cryptocurrency adoption and valuation. Whether Pi Network achieves their ambitious pricing targets matters less than whether their community-first approach proves that 60 million engaged users can create economic value independent of traditional market mechanisms. I want to personally salute every warrior who analyzed this entire strategic breakdown with me. Your commitment to understanding systematic community building instead of chasing random price predictions is what transforms retail traders into institutional thinking predators. Before you leave this battlefield, make sure to check out my recent analysis on why altcoin season dynamics are secretly rewarding community-driven projects right now. It perfectly complements this Pi Network breakdown and reveals the macro forces that make community consensus strategies incredibly powerful heading into 2025. Keep your analysis sharp, your emotions disciplined, and remember, community consensus doesn't guarantee success, but it definitely changes the rules of engagement. This is TJ from TJ Crypto World, and I'll see you on the next strategic battlefield analysis.